to Stockton Atlantic City this afternoon. We have a very full program. And to introduce this afternoon's agenda, it's my very great pleasure to welcome to the podium Stockton University's President, Dr. Harvey Kesselman.
That was Dr. Michelle McDonald, who is our Chief Academic Officer for Atlantic City, Associate Vice President for Academic Affairs. Thanks all of you for being here at Stockton East. For those, if this is your first time here, welcome. At the conclusion, we ask that you take some time and go across the street and see the 533-bed residence hall that's across the street. One of the most important things that an institution of higher education can do is provide an opportunity for folks to discuss issues of relevance. It's a place where it ought to be a marketplace of ideas where people are able to express their opinions and their principles on issues that matter. And I don't think there's an issue that matters more right now in the state of New Jersey than financial sustainability, than the fiscal condition in which this state currently is. Today's speaker, as you all know, is Senate President, the esteemed Senate President Steve Sweeney. Steve Sweeney has an approach. He has ideas. He has principles and values that he is going to articulate today for all of you with an esteemed panel. I want to say personally, just yesterday, I was with all of the other senior college and university presidents in the state of New Jersey, and during our discussion, and Senate President Sweeney came to speak with all of us, but during our discussion subsequent to him being there, we talked about who has been the most significant and positive influence on higher education in the state of New Jersey since Governor Tom came. And there was absolutely, all of us, unanimously thought and believe it's been Senator Sweeney. This building, that building, that building, and the all new buildings on the campus in Galloway, all of them were a direct result of his commitment to higher education in this state. So when he speaks today, and I'm grateful for Marlene Aselta and SNJ DC for hosting this, but when he speaks today, it ought to be, as an audience, we need to listen to the ideas, because I can tell you with absolute certainty, the higher education community fundamentally is grateful for the work that he's done, along with his ability to get his colleagues to pass critically important legislation that has led to the metamorphosis of higher education in New Jersey, of which every single person in this room benefits. So with no further ado, I'll turn it over to Marlene Aselta and welcome her to the podium. Thank you, Marlene.
Well, thank you, Dr. Kesselman. It's a pleasure to be here on behalf of the Southern New Jersey Development Council. We welcome you to this lovely facility. We have some lusting eyes on this room. It's lovely. We think we might ask if we could have one of our own programs here sometime soon. So thank you very much. And not only, I'll just ad-lib for a moment, not only did Senator Sweeney make a huge impact on the eastern shores of Atlantic County, but I'm from his district in Glassboro, and what's happening in Gloucester County, only through the efforts of Senator Sweeney, is absolutely amazing. And for those of you who have not been in that direction lately, you have my personal invitation. Just traffic is crazy, but that's a sign of progress. So we thank you, Senator, on the western side also for your efforts. So I'll tell you a little bit about Senator Sweeney. Most of you know, but just to reiterate a bit. New Jersey Senate President Steve Sweeney represents the 3rd legislative district, which includes portions of Gloucester, Cumberland, and all of Salem County. From 1997 to 2010, he served on the Gloucester County Board of Chosen Freeholders, where he then served as director from 1998 to 2010. First elected to the New Jersey State Senate in 2001, he has been re-elected 5 times and was chosen by the Democratic majority to lead the Senate in 2009, again 2013, and once more in 2017. As an iron worker by trade, Senator Sweeney sponsored laws to raise New Jersey's minimum wage and has advocated for legislation to create New Jersey's paid family leave program. Last year, he established a bipartisan panel of legislators and economic experts to develop reforms that address the state's most challenging fiscal problems. The Economic and Fiscal Policy Work Group issued a series of far-reaching recommendations that aims to avert crisis conditions, maintains fiscal stability, reduces the cost of government, and would allow the state to support vital needs and services. Steve was born in Camden, not too far from Gloucester County. Currently serves as the General Vice President of the International Association of Bridge, Structural, Ornamental, and Reinforcing Iron Workers Union. Steve and wife Patty have 2 children, Stephen and Lauren. So we'll thank him for being here, and we'll hear more from him in a few minutes. Now I'll turn this back over to Michelle.
Thank you, and once again, welcome to those of you who have been here before, or those of you who are visiting Stockton Atlantic City for the first time. We want to recognize a few people who have made this program possible, particularly the Southern New Jersey Development Council, who have provided this afternoon's refreshments, of which we will partake when this program is finished, as well as Stockton University's Production Services and Insider NJ, which are live streaming today's activities. There are also a few people in the room we would be remiss if we did not mention. These include Senator Bill Gormley, Casino Control Chairman James Plousis, Casino Control Commissioner Alicia Cooper, Atlantic County Freeholder Karen Fitzpatrick, Atlantic City Mayor Frank Gilliam, Atlantic City Councilman Kaleem Shabazz, and Buna Mayor Dave Zapparillo. If I forgot you, it's not that we don't love you, and it's not that you're not important. But more importantly, my job here today is to introduce the panel's other 2 participants. Joining Senate President Sweeney are Bridget Callahan Harrison, a 1987 graduate of Stockton University, and that deserves a round of applause, that's fine, and Professor of Political Science and Law at Montclair State University, where she has taught since 1994. She is a prolific author with 5 books on American politics, including American Democracy Now!, which is published by McGraw-Hill and is one of the leading introductory American government texts in our nation. Harrison is a frequent commentator in print and electronic media on U.S. politics. She's provided regular political analysis to local affiliates of ABC, NBC, and CBS, and NPR radio programs, and is regularly featured on NJTV. Editorials have appeared in the New York Times, USA Today, the Star-Ledger, the Bergen Record, and the Press of Atlantic City. Joining her is John Frungian, Senior Research Associate and soon-to-be Interim Executive Director of the William J. Hughes Center for Public Policy at Stockton University. Frungian manages Stockton's Polling Institute, an academic public opinion polling center, in addition to conducting research and data analysis. Before joining Stockton in 2011, Frungian worked for 32 years as a reporter and editor at the Press of Atlantic City, including as a New Jersey State House political reporter, an investigative reporter, a long-term projects reporter, and a database journalist and city editor. Panelists, the floor is yours.
I'm going to start us off. So, Senator, before we get into the nuts and bolts of Path to Progress, could you talk to us a little bit about how you first became involved in politics and how that motivation has shaped your political career?
Well, Bridget, yes, but 1 second. I want to recognize the mayor of the great city of Bridgeton, Al Kelly, who is here. Because I represent that city. You know, Bridget, it's kind of funny how life happens and takes its course. I'm an iron worker by trade. I didn't go to college. And I had a son. 4 years later, I had a daughter. And my daughter was born with Down syndrome. Well, she was a preemie. She was 2 pounds. I held her in my hand. You know, it's wild that you can think you hold a life that small in your hand. And we were in a neonatal unit for 75 days. And halfway through, we found out she had Down syndrome. I'll never forget the doctor telling me what I was given a gift. And they had to pull me off the doctor because I was going to kill him. I was so angry. Because at the time, I didn't understand any of this stuff. You know, honestly, I didn't understand. I didn't recognize disabilities as well as I should have, because there was no disability in my family. You know, we chased it. We tried to blame whose fault it was and everything else. But at the end of the day, she's the greatest gift that I was ever given, because it's given me the ability to really reach my potential as a human being. And for me, it was wanting to do things to help people with disabilities. You know, like, you always hear, oh, look what they did here, what they did that, and no one cares. And someone says, well, if you don't like it, do something about it. Well, the Democrats asked me to run for freeholder in Gloucester County. 3 days later, the Republicans asked me. And I was like, I think I can win this. And I told everyone that my first focus was going to be to give parents with children with disabilities choices to improve their quality of their life and their education. And we did it. And we continue to do it. And Gloucester County is like one of the role models for special education in the state of New Jersey, because once you start creating, in fact, we just left an event at Gloucester County, Rowan College at Gloucester County, where we're going to be putting a medical unit in from SOM that is going to train doctors, primary care doctors in special education, and dealing with mental health aspects too. You know, the behavioral health aspects. And there's not another thing like this around, and they're going to be housed in our school. What you find out when you're a parent with a child with a disability, there's not many doctors that are certified in how to deal with children. In fact, a few years ago when I checked in the legislature, there was one dentist in all South Jersey with special needs certified. So creating opportunities and being an advocate for the disabled is something I will continue to do when I'm out of politics, but being in politics has given me the opportunity to actually really expand and push to make sure that people with disabilities can really maximize their lives, because people with disabilities are just differently abled. You know, Bridget, they're differently abled, but they have personalities, they have dreams, they have desires, they want to achieve things. Like my daughter, you know, at 16, she told me she had a boyfriend, which didn't make me really happy. And she FaceTimes him all the time, and I tell her I don't like him, and I don't want to talk to him. At 21, she told me she could drink. And I said, oh, I'm not going to use the words. I said, Lauren, Daddy's favorite beer is O'Doul's. And luckily, she believed me. You know, and she, you know, but my point is, she's really living a full life, the fullest life that she can. She's 26, and she's enjoying life. She's excited about doing things. She works at a daycare center. You know, we got to work with the federal government because they restrict people with disabilities. If you make too much money, they take your health benefits away. So there's some challenges ahead, and housing's another challenge. But I got involved, like a lot of people do. You get passionate on something. My passion was Lauren, and Lauren made me, again, a person I never dreamed I could possibly be. Look, I'm an iron worker that didn't go to college. I'm the president of the New Jersey State Senate. You know, it's pretty, yeah, not too bad. And that's why, honestly, I value higher education so much, because I got to where I am out of, you know, hard work and luck. And a lot of people work very hard in life and don't get the opportunities. Once you get an education, it's something they can't take from you.
Silver bullet.
Yeah.
Thanks, Senator. I'd like to ask about the work group that produced this report. Could you tell us a bit about it and how they came to produce what they did?
Well, you know, John, it just came about. I was talking to a couple senators, and I said, you know, we're in real trouble in this state, and we need to do something about it. So we didn't take any formal legislative action. I just asked Steve Orho and Paul Sarlo co-sponsor it Then we started dialing out to try to get people with expertise. And if you look at who served on it, it was the who's who of New Jersey when it comes to government policy, when it comes to taxes, when it comes to the economy. So we have a remarkable group of experts that came together, and we weren't going to restrict them. You know, John, like, it wasn't, this isn't my plan. It's a plan I promised all these people that put hours upon hours in to work to come up with something to fix New Jersey, because, hey, I love New Jersey, and I don't want to ever leave it, but too many of my friends, I hear, as soon as my kids are out of high school, I'm out of here. So, you know, John, this is a game, this is a plan. A lot of these ideas are not new. Especially, you've been around long enough, you've heard a lot of these things before. The problem is, at this point in time, if we don't correct New Jersey, there isn't going to be a correction. And unfortunately, that means that it's just going to get to a place where there will be no investment. We won't be able to invest in higher ed. We won't be able to invest in anything. Because what came out of the report is, look, there was 200 recommendations. We broke it down into 5 working groups. From 5 working groups, they broke it down to 58 recommendations to 32. But by 2023, we have a $4 billion deficit if we don't change. And oh, by the way, raising taxes is not going to fix the problem. In fact, it's only going to make it worse. And this is if the economy, the chart they have up, if the economy never goes down, we're in $4 billion. And we all know we're going to have it. We're going to hit an adjustment. I'm hoping it's not a full-fledged recession, but there's going to be an adjustment to the economy. So, you know, if you look at the people that put the program together, and John, I promised everybody when they worked with it, this would not be a report that would be put on a shelf and just an academic exercise, that it was going to be something that we would work to pass. And I've done several town hall meetings where we average about 400 people at a town hall meeting, a lot of them yelling at me, and I don't care. We're going to fix New Jersey, period. And there's an easy way of doing it, and there's a hard way of doing it. But New Jersey's worth fixing, and you know, and we're going to do it.
If I can follow up, speaking of people yelling at you, in 2017, the NJEA targeted you in your election. It was the most expensive legislative race in history. And you would not post a constitutional amendment that would prioritize payments to the pension system over other allocations. So can you talk a little bit about that race, what it was like, what, if anything, you learned from it, and what kind of context that provides for going forward?
Well, I'm glad you recognized it was the most expensive legislative race in the history of the country. And it wasn't a whole lot of fun, to be honest with you. But I wouldn't, the lack of leadership that the NJA showed to their members, the question couldn't pass. We had just passed a gas tax. People were very angry. And to constitutionally put that ballot question up, we knew it would fail miserably. And at that point, it would give excuses for future governors not to make any payment and just let the system go bankrupt. But that wasn't an option either, because the court said we have to pay it. And you know, John, what we're facing is, I think it's by 2027, the system's going to go bankrupt. And we'll have to raise taxes if it goes bankrupt, $8 billion on top of the taxes now just to pay the pension. And the fact is, by 2023, pension and health care costs are going to be 27% of our total budget. So it was worth, like, I didn't want to have the fight, but you know, leaders don't tell people what they want to hear. They tell them the truth, and they work with their members. Oh, the race was wild. You know, I mean, the commercials, the attacks. You know, one of the most offensive things that they actually did is, my son's a teacher, and they were not attacking my son, but they were harassing my son. And look, I'm the head of a labor organization. We stopped doing that stuff 40 years ago. So for a teachers union to be calling my son, to email my son, tell him they need him to come out against me, well, he's one of the few people that actually love me. You know what I mean? There's not many, but he's one of them. And you know, and he was ready to quit his job because I tell people he's not like me at all. He's very nice, you know, and he wasn't, you know, you don't go after family. And it's funny, I ran into a couple of teachers who were saying, why won't you talk to us? I said, because you crossed the line when you went after my family. I'm fair game. Beat the living crap out of me. Because, oh, by the way, I won by the biggest margin I ever won by in my life. And guess what? You know what that meant? That their teachers voted for me. Because teachers understand what's wrong here. And teachers know that we need to fix things. Because if we don't start to fix this, John, there's no money for higher education. I met with the presidents the other day. I want to invest in higher ed. All these kids that are going to school now, the states around us, all have out-of-state tuition rates that make it cheaper for kids to go out of state than in-state. They're stealing our kids. They're stealing our future. Because I don't have the money to keep the cost down. Because by just putting all your money, and all the money is going into pension health care, which means I can't make any investments in higher education. And each year it's going to get worse. So, you know, they're stealing our future, and I'm trying to stop that. But the race was a lot of fun.
So, Senator, last Friday you proposed a pretty controversial measure that would have essentially move teachers out of their current benefit program and into the state health benefit program. Can you talk a little bit about both what that looks like, kind of fiscally, but also what the politics of it look like?
Well, back in the 2000s, there was a thing called Direct 10 and Direct 15. Now, all the workforce in the state went to Direct 15. The only people that didn't were the teachers. They stayed at Direct 10. And why anyone should be treated, if we're all in it together, we should be treated the same. You know, our workers, our government workers are just as valuable as teachers. They do very hard, you know what I mean? They work hard. But, Bridget, what the CWA just did, and I give them a lot of credit, they're making the right steps to come in line with more affordable health care plan. The plan that they just changed has an actuarial value of about 86%. You know, what we're talking about is going to 80%, a gold standard. The teachers, on the other hand, their plan was $42,000. It's now $38,000. So there's $11,000 difference for a family plan between a public worker and a teacher. Why? So, because we have two plans. So we said, listen, just merge the two plans together. We'll save hundreds of millions of dollars. Everyone's going to have very good health insurance. Oh, by the way, the teacher will pay $2,600 or $3,000 less out of pocket. Because what we keep hearing is, we want Chapter 78, you heard that Chapter 78 relief, which was the reforms we did under Christie. Well, we did it for one reason. We wanted to force people to make decisions on health care. You know, you have skin in the game. There's other health care plans. The problem is everyone wants to keep the one that's $38,000. That's nice. But what about the carpenter whose health insurance is $16,000, or the public workers at $27,000? You know, this is just, and Steve Orr reminds us of this all the time. There's a Cadillac tax coming. That in Obamacare, and
Explain that. People may not know what a Cadillac tax is.
Obamacare is something, just so you know, I believe in Obamacare, they put it's been delayed, but it's coming, where they put a premium. If you have anything above a gold health care plan, an 80% health care plan, you're going to pay 40% premium because you have like a super rich plan. Well, we have the super rich plan. We can't afford another 40%. I'm looking at the mayor. You couldn't pick up another 40%, it would bankrupt your town. I don't even know why this is negotiable. You know what I mean, Bridget? It's like, look, this is coming down the road. Do we have to wait for the train to hit the car to realize we're in a disaster?
So for an average teacher, you know, I'm a teacher teaching at Atlantic City High School, and this merge happens. What does that mean both in my premium costs, but also what insurance no longer covers, my true out-of-pockets?
Honestly, you're going to, as a teacher, you're going to pay about $3,000 less. And your out-of-pocket costs may increase a little, but they're not going to increase $3,000. And what I keep telling people is, if you reduce this platinum, oh, by the way, this plan's has a 97% actual value. There's no plan in the country, in the entire United States, that's as rich as this plan. You know what I'm saying, Bridget? There's not one state that can come close to matching this plan. So you're going to have outstanding health insurance, better health insurance than a Fortune 500 company like J&J gives their employees. You're going to have better than that, and it's going to be cheaper, and it's going to be less out-of-pocket costs. So all the way around, like, that's what I don't think people really understand. And when you try to explain, you know, there was something controversial in here too that upset a lot of people, so I pulled it back. New Jersey is the only state in the country that when you retire, you pay less than you pay working. Every state in the United States, if you're paying 15% or 20% for health care, that's what you pay in retirement. New Jersey's different. I think we pay 9%, where the average is 21%. So we're not doing that, but we want people to understand how much we're giving, how much we value, because we do value our teachers. We do value our public workers. But we got to realize the people that are paying the bill, they can't pay it anymore. You know, when we talk to the presidents, they can't raise tuition much more anymore because it's just not reachable for kids to go to school. And taxpayers, if the average tax bill is $8,700, that means you have to make $15,000 just to pay your property taxes. At what point do we say we're broke?
How has the NJEA responded to this plan?
They love my ideas. But Bridget, I'm not going away. And the problem with it is this isn't attacking them. It's they need to be honest with their members about what the difference in health care would be, because it's not like you're talking, I'm giving you poor health insurance. Some people have more insurance than they're actually going to use. We also talked about developing a bronze plan, right? And a bronze health care plan would be a basic health care plan. So the young worker, the new worker that doesn't have a family, just comes into the workforce, you take this, you pay nothing out of pocket. We'll save, they'll save. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you know, let's get, I keep saying this, we're better when we're all in it together. But right now, we're not all in it together. And unfortunately, we can keep kicking the can down the road and do a millionaire's tax and do this tax. It doesn't add up to fixing the problem. It just delays the inevitable. And what I'm telling you is the inevitable is when Christie was the governor, we had a 7-year smoothing plan. At the end of 7 years, which would have been this year, we would have been at $5.4 billion. We would have plateaued and then gone down. We're going to get up to, in 4 years, we did $3.2 billion. I got to come up with another 3.5 in 4 years. So 6 years, 3.2. So where's the money come from? You know, we grow, our ratables grow. I mean, our revenues grow every year. But every penny of new growth, every penny is pension and health care. So if I can't invest in higher ed, then kids are going to other states. You know, we lose 35,000 kids. We're the #1 exporter of kids in the nation. Figure about $6 billion in dollars that are generated or borrowed in New Jersey going to other states. And the biggest crime with that is when kids leave, they establish friendships, relationships, internships. They normally don't come back. So we export the greatest investment that we've made to other states.
Senator, you mentioned the policy group made recommendations on policy in 5 different areas. Can we talk about the pension benefits reform? Yeah. The report recommends shifting new state and local employees, and those with less than 5 years in the pension system, out of the defined benefit plan and into a sustainable hybrid system. Employees with over 5 years would be vested in the system, but can you explain what that hybrid system would look like?
Well, just so you understand, John, I will explain that. What we're saying is anyone that has a vested pension, and that means you've served in your job for at least 5 years, nothing changes. You're going to get what you were promised. But going forward for new workers, a new plan, and the hybrid pension system we're talking about is $40,000 when pension when you're first $40,000, and then basically a 401k on top. So you can take that money with you wherever you go. Now, understand, obviously that hasn't been met with great warmth either. So one day I pick up a newspaper and I read where Pennsylvania just changed the pension system. They got a progressive Democrat governor. I'm like, I'm in the Philadelphia media market. There had to be a battle, because you remember the battles I went through before, right? I said, there had to be a war over this. Well, I start looking for articles. My staff's looking. We found 2 articles. It said little or no pushback from the unions. They're the same unions we have in New Jersey. Little or no pushback. So I start reading the article, and one of the union leaders said, and I call union officials union leaders because leaders, you know, they're not bosses, they're leaders, right? So I read where one of the union leaders from one of the unions that covers a lot of people here said, look, you know, the previous governor had put forward a really bad pension plan. The legislature's always going to be Republican. So having a Democrat, we're going to take our best deal we can and take this issue off the table. No fight. How about the reality that we can't survive the weight of this pension, this deficit that we have? So just give me a new pension system. Let's move on to the next issue. And realize, here's the argument. Well, it's not going to fix it immediately. No, it doesn't fix it immediately. Pensions are 20 and 30-year looks. And that's the way some of these organizations that fight change want to say, hey, look, this didn't, you're not fixing it tomorrow. No, I know I'm not fixing it tomorrow. But I'm changing all the numbers going out, and as I move forward, that number goes down. You know, John, and I'm willing to give to get. We're looking at assets, and the governor actually put out an RFI or an RFP to review all the assets. We don't know what we own. I mean, we know we own the Turnpike, we know we own Passaic Valley Water, we know we own North Jersey Water Supply. We own a lot of assets. So we're saying, look, we'll do what corporations do. We'll take our assets, not privatize them, public to public, put them in the pension system. And they said, it's a gimmick. I said, nah, it's not a gimmick. It just gives us more breathing room by putting assets in the pension system. It gives us a little more room to spend where we need to spend, but to bring instead of that curve going like this, the curve goes like this. Oh, and by the way, if no one screwed around with the pension system, the government, look, we didn't make our payments, but there was a lot of playing around with legislation. The pension payment should be less than $1 billion right now. What a shame.
Just to be clear, if assets are transferred to the pension, that does not create a hole of revenue that has to be replaced elsewhere.
No. No, again, John, you know, there's ideas in this plan too, like hot lanes. There's hot lanes in Virginia and Maryland. I think it's Virginia and Maryland. And like we have federal highways. I think 78 and 80 are federal highways. And we're not talking about taking lanes and designating, we're talking about building new lanes, you know, express lanes. So people that can't afford them are going to benefit, because the people that are driving in the hot lanes are now not driving in the congested lanes, right? So it benefits them. Private sector would build it. It would not be built by government dollars. It would be built by a private entity. And we would get a piece of the action. You know what I'm saying? So you improve transportation, we'll generate revenue, and we'll dedicate that to the pension too. You know, there's ways of trying to get control of this thing. But I really want to see the pension system survive, and it's not going to survive the way it is. You know, Governor Murphy's committed to making these payments, as I am. Hey, listen, I got Christie to sign a bill to do quarterly pension payments, because what used to happen was the last bill we paid every year in budget, the very last bill at the end of the year was the pension bill. So by doing it quarterly, we now make interest on it. Oh, but by the way, we're underperforming this year. Underperforming big time in the pension this year. And that's without any kind of anything bad happening. And I see a friend of mine, Marcus King here. You know, we in the private sector that manage our pensions, when I don't make my assumption rate, that's what, you know, you assume your interest, I don't make that, I change my benefits. I don't have a choice. You know what I'm saying, John? The taxpayers, this is not fair to the taxpayers to be held hostage either. We got to run the system differently than we're doing it. Thanks.
So the Path to Progress report acknowledges, and I'm going to quote it here, this is a direct result of the failure of governors and legislatures of both parties to make the necessary pension payments. Union employees would argue that they negotiated their benefits in good faith, and the state has an obligation to uphold those promises. What would you say to government employees who feel that they're taking the fall for the governors and legislatures' inability to do what they promised?
Well, listen, the workers have a right to feel the way they do because they haven't been told the truth. But government has skipped their payments, 1,000%. And by the way, the unions went along with it. I was there when Jim McGreevey didn't make payments, and there was nobody yelling and hollering. There was no protests. I was there. I was there when John Corzine had to back off. No yelling and hollering or picketing. None. Bill knows this. He was there, right? So, but you got to look at the history of the pension system. It takes two to tango, is what I tell everybody. Back in '97, Christy Whitman decided she was going to bond the pension system. Shows she could cut taxes. That was the gimmick. I got $2.8 billion. I'm going to cut taxes by 30%. You remember that, right? Well, they took the pension money to cut taxes. They didn't really have the money, so they bonded it. Well, here's the bond. It's non-recallable, which means you can't refinance it. It was at 7.5%. It was backloaded, and by 2027, and we got 8 more years of this, we'll pay back $10.8 billion to borrow too. Now, when interest rates all went down, right, we couldn't refinance. I'm the chair of 2 pension funds. I have people that bought that debt because they couldn't believe anything like that was available. You know what I mean? That was a wild dream for pension people. I mean, investors, because it was just so lucrative. But the teachers union and the CWA went along with the bonding. I never forget John Matheson, who was a senator at the time. I just gotten into public office. I was a freeholder. And John and I are very good friends. I said, John, you can't vote for this. You're going to destroy the pension system. And John said, I don't know what you're talking about, Steve. I have the CWA and the NJA urging us to pass it. Okay, well, they passed it. It created a paper over funding. The assumption rate, and I'm just giving you numbers because I love numbers. The assumption rate was 8 3/4, right? There's no such thing as that, 8 3/4, John? So they jacked up the assumption rate. Now they have a paper over funding. Well, when you have an overfunding, you get to enhance benefit. So the public sector got to reduce their contributions to the pension system from 5.5 to 3.5. Okay, it's not real, but they did it. And now they're still overfunded. So what do? They say we want to lower retirement age by 5 years. How much does that cost? Remember, union officials are no different than public officials. They're elected by their membership. So who doesn't like to come home and say, look, I just got you a brand new pickup truck, and it didn't cost a thing, right? So they lowered the retirement age 5 years with no funding. And then in 2001, this was the mother of all disasters. The legislature, Republican, Democrat, and I think only one person voted against it, they gave a 9% increase to 800,000 people with no money. So when the public employees, they need that education to understand why. I'm not blaming them. I blame their leadership for being dishonest. Because as a leader, you have a responsibility to explain to your membership. Bridget, I had to do this all the time with my job. Go to my members and say, hey, listen, you can't take any more money in your wages because we have to put more money into the health care. We have to put more money into the pension. You know what I mean? Because our assumptions didn't work out. So when the public sector workers say that, they say it with lack of really, the workers really don't know that history. And it's unfortunate that that people don't try to educate them more to explain that. Again, when I hear public workers say, I paid my 5.5, that's not how it really works. It doesn't work. And oh, by the way, you're not really paying for the benefit that you're getting. Not even close to paying.
Senator, would you talk about the difference between this proposal and the Healy-Byrne plan that was recommended in the last administration?
Well, this is a soft stop. When I say the Healy-Byrne plan was that everyone would stop today, I'm using today, and be switched into a 401k, no pension. Problem with that, John, is I would need about $1.4 billion to do that, because you still got to make your pension payments, and you got to pay when you pay a 401k. You got to put that money in, right? Well, I couldn't make the transformation. So we came up with this soft stop, which is the hybrid. And the hybrid is what I explained to you earlier. It's $40,000, pension in the first $40,000, 401k above that. And oh, by the way, you get to take that money with you when you leave. And some people don't spend 5 years in government, and they get to take that 401k with them. But the Healy-Byrne report was actually very aggressive, and I'm not saying it was wrong. It just was not. We couldn't do it. We could not financially do it if we wanted to.
Was it politically tenable?
I mean, listen, politically attainable. Nothing's politically attainable until you just like drive everybody crazy and just keep banging away at it, and eventually you get there. John, it's like this. I know this isn't popular. This is going to get done. One way or another, it's getting done, because there really isn't any option but to get it done. So it's, is it okay to, again, not fund higher education? Is it okay not to fund schools? Is it okay not to fund disabled programs? Because every year, more and more money is going into two pots, and we have a $36 billion plus budget, and as the Senate President, we get to haggle the budget, the add-ons. We argue over a $100,000 line item. That's ridiculous, but that's how little money we have available. Any enhancement that we want to make in New Jersey now has to come with a tax increase, unless we deal with the reality of coming up with a new pension system, coming up with a new healthcare system, taking those dollars, invest them in the right places. We think the pension healthcare plan can save $3 billion. And what we were saying is on the local level, we would mandate that they would have to reduce their property taxes. Like I see my Mayor Bridgeton here, if he saved $1 million, he would have to cut his taxes by $1 million. He wouldn't get to spend it. So you see a reduction in property tax, and it's real, and it's sustainable. And then if they want to come back and raise taxes, they always have the ability to do that. But give the taxpayers a break. And by the way, public employees are taxpayers too. And they are struggling to live in this state. And I can tell you that 30% of public employees leave New Jersey when they retire. The number one reason is affordability. So, again, all in it together, we can fix this. Not in it together, it's going to be an ugly battle. I use the word, I'll go to war over this, and I will, because I want to stay in this state. I love this state. It's, people make fun of New Jersey. Well, they shouldn't. We have the most dynamic state in the nation. We just got screwed up government, and we need to fix it. I didn't curse. So far, that's good.
Yeah, that's good. For you especially.
Yes, especially me.
I'm sure the audience will have lots of questions about the aspects of pension and benefit reform in the path to progress. But let's turn our attention for a little while into the aspects of the reform that impact both K-12 education and property taxes. Can you talk a little bit about that proposal that you have that would merge school districts?
Well, Lucille Davey, who was the education commissioner during John Corzine's term, sat on this panel. And she said, the majority of the schools, when you have a regional high school, the schools that send to the high school don't coordinate curriculum with the high school. The majority of them don't, right, Bridget? So what we found out is if you have 5 schools sending to a high school, you got to feel sorry for the 9th grade teacher, because all the kids are at different levels of learning, or have learned different, different math and different. So it's what we said. One is, if we have these regional high schools, why not just make them regional K-12 schools instead of, eliminate the K-4, the K-6, the K-8s. Don't close the buildings. We're not talking about closing the buildings, We're talking about you'll have the same teachers, you'll have the same building, you'll just have a principal instead of a board of education and a superintendent and all the administration that goes with it. And you know, in talking to these superintendents of the regional high schools, most of them will tell you they can't get curriculum coordinated, they can't even get schedules coordinated. So one thing we're going to do now, because we can do it, is we're going to mandate that all sending districts that go to the regional high schools have to coordinate curriculum. We're going to legislate that right off the bat, and schedule. So that if you have a kid, if you live in a town and your kid's in the high school and the other kid's in that elementary school and they're both off on different days, you know, that's a struggle for families. But we really think that we can save, the estimates are about $1 billion, but we're not driving it on savings. We're driving it on making New Jersey's education even better than it is. We got great schools.
So the savings would come primarily from economies of scale and the elimination of administrators, is that correct?
The elimination of administrations, right? You would go from 600 school districts to 320.
Okay.
So you're cutting the number of school districts in half. So, you know, count the superintendents, HR directors, all that administration. And then now you're buying everything. You know, we're buying all the same equipment, we're buying all the same books, so we're squeezing all the pennies that our taxpayers deserve to be squeezed. You know what I mean? It's not like we're not, you know, we pay a lot for our schools, and we think we get a better system, a better delivery of education at a more reasonable cost.
But under your plan, neighborhood schools would remain in neighborhoods and sending districts
Yes.
wouldn't be altered.
You know, Bridget, they tried to do a countywide school. There was a recommendation in here, in this path of progress, to create 2 countywide school systems. And then back in, I think, 2006, there was a recommendation. And the NJEA, I helped pause it so they could have input in it. Well, they decided they were going to kill the idea. And I was one of a handful of elected officials that were in Washington Township in Gloucester County, because there's every place got Washington Township, where there was 3,700 people screaming and yelling at us, like, you know, don't do this. They were promoting, like, all the kids were going to go to the districts that weren't seen as the better school districts. They were really, it was ugly what they were promoting, you know. And I was like, that's not how it works. But they recorded it and sent it to every legislator. Every legislator saw what we went through that night, and people were like, I don't want to deal with this. But so what we're trying to do is really get the education piece out first and tell people we're not going to close your school. Now, you might eventually close the school because it's not efficient. You know, in the report, it says one of the ideas was to look at small communities. And what we found out is small towns are very efficient with money. They don't waste money. You can argue whether you need the towns or not, you know, because I'm a believer that you just don't need government just to have government. But
You're not from New Jersey?
yeah, listen, I merged a bunch of unions. Yeah, I had 15 unions when I started my job. I got 4 now. I'm a big believer in consolidation. But you know, Bridget, what we found out in the report though was school districts with children less than 500, on average, spend 17% higher than the highest spending districts in the state of New Jersey. So when you're talking about a small school district in Gloucester County spending more money than a district in Newark that has a lot heavier social issues that they have to deal with. You know, Patterson teaches in 58 or 54 languages, and I'm spending more in a district in Gloucester County. It doesn't make sense. So there's a lot of waste, and we just think that we can really reduce cost. And you know, maybe you put more money into technology. Maybe you reduce class size. You know, maybe you make it even better. But we're never going to be able to do that. Maybe you can give teachers raises. But if you're only going to fund government, there's no money for anything else.
Talk a little bit, if you would, about the reforms to special education policies.
That's something, again, I started earlier, is near and dear to my heart. Joe Panaccio, who's a senator from Morris County, wants the state to take all extraordinary special ed costs to the state level. And we think that's a great idea.
Explain what extraordinary costs.
Extraordinary is for the kids that have the greatest challenges, where you have the biggest bills. And I think we're supposed to pay 80 or 85% of the bill.
So one student in a very small school district
Yeah.
might cost that district an extraordinary amount of money.
Well,
So-
Bridget, I'm glad you said that, because that drives me out of my mind when I hear people say, we had 3 disabled kids moved into the district, there goes our budget. People with disabilities are entitled to an education, they're entitled to have a life, they're entitled to have opportunities, and they're not the problem. The problem is the state of New Jersey not funding it, right? So what we said is, we'll take all extraordinary special ed costs to the state level. We'll fund it. And if we fund it, I need $200 million to fund it. The money's there. I just can't get at it because it's in 2 pots. Now, you know what that would do to towns? If we took all extraordinary ed money costs away from towns, it would stop the, oh my God, disabled kids moved into the neighborhood. It would reduce the burden on the property taxpayers in those towns and would make us the great state and the people we are. I don't think people dislike people with disabilities. I really don't. I think they care a great deal. But when you can't afford to stay in your house anymore because you can't pay your bills, you do get a little bit looking within, saying how unfair it is. So part of our recommendation is to take all extraordinary special ed to the state level, fund it, and we could start right now. We could start by, you know, if it's $50 million a year over the next 4 years, you know, the governor is proposing free county colleges. And I'm not supportive of that, because I think that if we have money right now, if county colleges are affordable, the county colleges weren't looking for it. The qualification to get the free money is already set by the federal government. So last year, the county colleges got $25 million. They only could spend $5 million of it, and they fought real hard to find a way to spend it.
Right.
So what we're saying is take the money, put it in the 4 years, reduce the burden for our kids there. You know what I'm saying, Bridget? But there's money around if we choose, and we gave the governor a bill. We gave the governor a bill that the county colleges actually asked for, which was to take the county colleges out of the state education health benefit plan. And the governor vetoed the bill and said that it was a violation of collective bargaining. Well, number one, we, the legislature, put the county colleges into the state education health benefit plan through legislation. So how is it collective bargaining if I made legislation to force you to do that? And the county colleges, here's the crazy stuff. They would have saved $18 million. And the workers, the people working in the schools would save $4 million out of pocket combined. So, you know what I'm saying? It's like, come on, let's do this right. Let's do it smart.
Senator, I've gotten a sign. We only have a few minutes left.
Okay.
We've heard a lot of doomsday scenarios about what happens if we don't make these reforms, we don't address these problems. Let's flip that. What does the picture look like in 4 years if these reforms are approved?
I think it's a completely different outlook. You're going to see Moody's, Standard & Poor's, and rating agencies have a different opinion of New Jersey. You know, the governor went to the rating agencies with this budget, and he figured, well, my surplus is over $1 billion. They're going to give me a real thumbs up. The report came back and says, what are you doing with the pension? You know, that was pretty much it. The pension's the problem. So you address these things, it changes the narrative all the way around. We can reduce property taxes. Not make-believe reduction, real reduction. So you reduce property taxes, that's a positive sign. You fix your pension system where you have a real solution for the pension. That the rating agencies will give you an upgrade on. And you know, John, and you move forward and you make the investments. You know, the investment that we made, we're at Stockton right now. The investment that we made in this city is a changer, for real, a game changer. This whole section of Atlantic City, and Harvey's, and I thank you all the time for what you've done and your willingness to continue this expansion, because Atlantic City deserves to be helped. But John, I only can help them if I have money. And if I don't have any money, so it's not picking on anybody. It's let's get in the real world, let's get a real pension system, let's get a real healthcare system, and let's start investing. I'm a big believer in pre-K. I would love to fully fund pre-K. It's one of the best values you could possibly have. The brain develops from birth to 5 years old, your brain develops 85%. The sooner you get a child, the sooner they start to learn. My daughter, who had Down syndrome, she was in neural intervention. They were teaching her 5 weeks, 5 days after she got out of the hospital. And guess what? She learned. So the point is, there's investments that make us better, but we need the money to do them. And if we weren't the 5th highest tax burden state in the country, I'd say there's room to tax, but there's not. The room to tax doesn't exist. And the colleges are at a top rate for tuition. They really can't anymore. It's affordability issues. So, you know, Bridget, we're at a breaking point. I tell people, we're in a death spiral, John. We're in a financial death spiral. But the good news is, it is absolutely fixable if I can get the public engaged. And, you know, I go back to that movie Network, where the guy opens the window and says, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. People are as mad as hell about taxes here. Here's a solution to start correcting the problem. I need people to engage. And that's why coming here and doing things like this, we're not going away. We're not hiding, and we're not backing down. You know, I'm a hardhead. You know, sometimes when you get beat up, you walk away. After going through an election that I went through, I'm not even a little bit afraid now. I think I've been given a mandate to fix something, and I'm going to fix it.
Before we get to the audience's questions, let me ask one final political question. Some would allege that these proposals are an opening salvo launching your 2021 gubernatorial bid. So given that perception, you're welcome to announce here. I think, as a South Jersey guy, you kind of have an obligation. But do you think that the governor would support these proposals, knowing that it would give his arch enemy some street cred?
No, that's why we got to get the public to force the change. And Bridget, this doesn't make me popular in Democrat circles. You realize that if I was wanting to run as a Democrat for governor, I wouldn't do any of this stuff, because this isn't what makes you popular. You know, I told Chris Christie when he was governor not to run for a second term. And he said, oh, you just want my job. I said, no. I said, if you run for president, you can't run for something else and be the governor of this state. The problems are too great, and you need to take them head on, and you need to fight for the people of this state. Listen, I don't help myself, because I'm a Democrat, and I'm not changing my party, okay? So everything I do only angers my base. But honestly, at this point, I really don't care. We have to fix New Jersey. And, Governor Murphy, I don't expect him to embrace this stuff. He'll embrace some things, he already has, and I appreciate that. I appreciate a lot of things. He talks about the $800 million in healthcare savings. Almost all those savings came from recommendations that the legislature gave him last year that they claim were phantom audits, and were really not nice about it if you look up the clips. But I thank him for, re-looking at them and recognizing that we are in this together and we want to fix this. Listen, I'm not helping myself in any way at all. I want to fix New Jersey because I want to stay in New Jersey, and I'm not leaving anyway. But I'm telling you, I'll go in a room for, oh yeah, scared. How many people in this room know somebody as soon as their kids are out of school are leaving? Anybody? Right? We all hear it. Bridget, I don't want those people to leave. So no, this is not a popularity contest. I know how to be popular. Just tell people yes. My problem is I tell them no. When it's wrong, I tell them no.
Can we give our panelists a round of applause, please? Before we begin the discussion session of this afternoon, I wanted to provide just a few logistical details so we know how this is going to work. There are 2 microphones that are moving throughout the audience. Raise your hands. They won't always be in that side of the room. In fact, I want one of them to start migrating over to this side of the room fairly quickly. When you wish to be recognized, we're going to ask that you please raise your hand. We want to include as many questions as we can. To ensure that people have the ability to participate, that want to do so, I ask that audience members limit themselves to one question and be as succinct as possible. And I hope that you will indulge me because this is a university town hall and learning how to participate in public debate is a critical experience for all students. I am going to yield the floor first to the younger members of our audience. Do any students have questions of the panelists? Please raise your hands.
I just want to ask, why is going to college in New Jersey so expensive?
Why is college in New Jersey so expensive? Because we don't support it. New Jersey's we're either 48th, 49th, or 50th in the nation. So if we don't give schools money to support them, they have to hit you as a student. You know what I'm saying? They raise your tuition, they find fees on top of fees. But you can't really fault the universities. They have a job of delivering education. Fault the state of New Jersey for not investing. Back in 2002, when I first got to the Senate, I think we were about 15th in the nation in financial support. And year after year, we just ignored. So it comes out of your pocket. So that's why having young people to say, hey, listen, this is how we make it more affordable. You're already here. For maybe the kids that are going to come, young people come behind you, we need to make change.
Do I have any other students who would like to ask a question?
There was one over here.
There was in the
There's one
striped
there.
shirt right here.
I was wondering what would happen if we were to allow the pension system to go bankrupt, like in Detroit, I think it is.
Well, we can't, because the courts, we've already been before the courts in the Supreme Court in New Jersey, and they said, well, we don't have to tell you how much to put in year to year or whatever, but when it goes bankrupt, you have to pay it. So what will happen is there would be a reduction in the benefit for the worker. Unfortunately, probably a third, if not more. Like if I was planning on $1,000, I'd probably wind up with $650, you know, which is not good, because there's not a reset button for people that have worked their whole life, you know, to say, oh, now it's too late. So, and then we'd have to raise taxes $8 billion. So you're talking about raising the sales tax 5 times. So you probably go to the sales tax of 12 or 13%, you know, and that hurts the middle class, the working poor. It hurts everyone. So we got to fix it. You know what I'm saying? Like just waiting for it to get to that point. Again, when you look at these charts, waiting to get to that point is just not acceptable. But understand in politics, no one likes to tell you stuff you don't want to hear. As elected officials, we want to tell you yes all the time. But as the president of the Senate, I've never done that. I believe in being honest with people and just saying what it is. And you might not like me afterwards, but you can't say I lied to you.
All right, we can go ahead and open up the floor to anyone's questions at this point. All right, let me have in the blue here and then gentleman here in the blue sweater.
Thank you. Hi, Freeholder Karen Fitzpatrick. Hi, Senator. I brought the Path to Progress before the Freeholder Board here in Atlantic County, and after that meeting I was contacted by local leadership of NJEA, and their comment was that they don't want changes to their contracts legislated. They want to be at the table to negotiate. What would you have me tell them?
Well, they didn't have a problem legislating their pension. They didn't have a problem changing health care through the legislative process. So what I would say is when you walk through a door, be very careful because you can walk back into that door. And you know, Karen, this isn't picking on them. You know, the rank and file teachers, if they, you know, understood that they could get really quality health care and put less out of pocket, this Chapter 78 relief they're talking about, Chapter 78 expired in 2017. What they want us to do now is tie the hands of management on what they can negotiate. So I go in and negotiate, and the school board is at a disadvantage. See, you know, instead of, look, I get what they do. I've been around them a long time. But I'm just not afraid of them. You know, Karen, and elected officials, listen, they count on it. We have so many thousands of members in your district. We have so many. We're going to run a camp. What they did against me, and not just last year, multiple years, and we won every time. You know, could I have won by bigger numbers? Probably. But you know something? Who cares? A win's a win.
Thank you.
In the Argyle right here. And then Erica, across the aisle.
I'm a member of a school board in Weymouth Township in Atlantic County. We're a very small district. And under the current legislation, S2, there are two main streams that we have to consider in terms of the consolidation that you've talked about, the financial side, and also student achievement, leading to a thorough and efficient education. We'd like to take a proactive approach on the question of merger or regionalization. And we know that there are some substantial one-time costs that we would have to achieve, including the studies and then, of course, melding the teacher salary guides and benefits and capital, the merging of capital liabilities on the parts of districts. And we'd like to know whether the state would be prepared to offer assistance so that we could help achieve those objectives, because we're really tapped out in terms of being able to pay for it ourselves. And on the student achievement side, our district achieves, in the most recent round of testing, achieved a score in the 62nd percentile. The districts that we would be the most likely candidates for us to merge with are around the 11th or 12th percentile, which is materially lower than ours. And what can the state do to help us so that our students don't suffer as a result of this?
No, I think that we would absolutely create a pool of money to help districts that want to be proactive and start merging this. Because realize, once it's done, you find out it works. Look, I'm as freeholder director in Gloucester County, we had two school districts that the counties control, the special service school district and the vocational school. We merged them, right? Different contracts, the whole bit. We went from $750,000 a year in savings to over 1.5 million. We've been doing that since 2000. And on top of it now, they find more ways to save money working with the county college. And all of a sudden it gets very infectious, you know what I mean? And you find ways to squeeze those hours. So yeah, I don't think we just tell you to do it with that support. We know it's not as easy as it sounds. There's work that has to be done. But by the way, if you want to do something, there's no way, you know, I tell people the only time things don't get done is when you don't want to.
Yeah, my name's Mike McCarra. I'm a Department of Corrections state worker. I've worked for the state for 22 years. I'm also a CWA member. And I want to just say about the pension fund that for the first time in about 15 years, I feel that we have something that might work. When you mentioned debt spiral, I'm going to be 65 in November. I can't afford a debt spiral. I know that CWA leadership many times simply turns things off because it has the name Steve Sweeney attached to it.
It's my
But
charm.
well, it comes with the territory, I guess. But I want you to know that people that I've spoken to, people that have been in the system for a long time, don't totally disagree with you with this, that there is support, because one of the things that you mentioned is that you didn't break any promises to people like me. There's the 5-year thing that might be negotiable, I guess, at some point. But I guess not a question, unfortunately, and I'll get it short. But I wanted to just make a statement. Don't stop.
Thanks.
Do not stop, because we might not get a second chance at fixing this pension fund. And I think your ideas are good. A lot of discussion is needed, but this is a move forward, and we can't afford to be looking in the rear view anymore. So I do want to thank you for that.
Mike, and you know what? I tell people all the time, okay, you don't like my plan. I get it. What's your recommendation? What's your plan? I'm open. Seriously, give me something. Please. It's lonely. being by yourself. You know what I mean? It's lonely when you're out there. No one wants to offer anything. This status quo will not accept the status quo. And I love this because I get to quote Einstein, me. If you do the same thing over and over again and expect, something different, it's insanity. It's insanity. It's insane to think we're going to sustain this and keep going forward. So you know something? One way or another, we're doing this. I tell people, I said this earlier, I'm doing this the hard way. I guarantee you if I put this on the ballot, that people will overwhelmingly, 90% of people would vote for this. Because if I can start funding higher ed to make it more affordable, if I can start funding pre-K, if I can fund priorities that makes New Jersey a very special place, again, people are jumping in. But they need help.
Heather, down front, actually the gentleman in the blue shirt. The gentleman in the blue shirt, who I should also say is the chairman of Stockton's Board of Trustees, you're walking right by him, Leo Schofer. And that's a shout out to all Board of Trustees members or Foundation Board members who are joining us this afternoon. Did you have a question?
No, is that gentleman over there.
And the gentleman behind you.
Hey,
You were waving to me.
hey, Leo, they know who the chair is, though.
My name is Tom Foley. I've lived in this town pretty much all my life.
Yeah.
Served 30 years in the fire department and 12 years as OEM director and a lot of other positions around here. And I can tell you, this is not on the subjects of pensions and all this. This is on our subjects, what's happening in our town, that this state has been running for at least 15 years and has destroyed this community. We are now running around with fire trucks that are falling apart. We have to borrow equipment from Ventnor. Those stations are being shut down because they're just contaminated. The police department's falling apart. They're down almost 100 police officers. The fire department's down to 150 firefighters. Everything is going downhill. The Public Works Department, everything else. And it's because of the state of New Jersey. Back in 1976, you promised us and all the voters of New Jersey that we were going to get 2% of the gross. First of all, we were supposed to get 6% of the gross for the first 4 years of operation. And now we get nothing. Then you pass internet gaming. What does the city of Atlantic City get? 0 to operate the town. What does the city get out of sports gaming, which the state of New Jersey is getting $1.8 million a month? We get 0.
Sir,
0
I'll ask you to ask your question.
No, I got what
So
you're saying.
what I'm saying to you, Senator, it's about time you pass some sort of legislation, not give this casino $70 million and other casinos millions and millions of dollars back. When I go down in other states and they know I'm from Atlantic City, they say, what the heck is going on in that town? Well, I'll tell you what's going on in town. It's what's happening in the state of New Jersey is destroying this city. And you have been doing it for the last 15 years. Start funding the operations of this town with the money that's collected in the town. We get nothing from the luxury tax. We get nothing from the parking tax. And for the operation of this city. And it's an absolute disgrace.
Tom, I'm happy to answer that, okay? You're right. New Jersey's not helping Atlantic City because they can't help themselves. We don't have the money to give you, number one. You didn't hear anything. I just told you we're broke. Number two, Atlantic City's budget, with all due respect, was $262 million for a town of 39,000 people. Let me finish.
That's not right.
Yes, it
Even
is.
There's 30 million people coming.
Let me finish. You spoke. Let me finish.
Yeah.
This town blows up population daily roughly to like 320,000 people a day. Guess what other town does that? New Brunswick. Okay? New Brunswick's budget's about 100 million. New Brunswick has thousands of college kids that, I don't know if you know this, from time to time can misbehave too, just like people at casinos. The problem is, Tom, there was a lack of leadership in this town. You can blame New Jersey, but how about an interim mayor taking the steps from 15 or 12 down to 7? So don't look in the mirror, because it takes 2 to tango, and people abuse the government down here, and they did. So a police officer, I don't know if the fire company did, but a police officer, it was 12 years to get to the top rate, because someone wanted to be the mayor, they were an interim mayor, they went to him and they dropped it down to 7.
That's not not true.
Yeah, don't tell me it's not true. I know it's true.
You're president in this town. You had 4 years to get the top salary.
Tom.
You're not telling the truth.
All right,
You're telling
Tom.
the truth.
Fine,
here's,
Tom.
Here's what I'm saying to you, Senator
Tom.
Sweeney. Listen, get some legislation passed to make some of this casino money come back to the operation of this facility in this town. And to make sure we do things like we have an infrastructure that's falling apart. Drive down Atlantic Avenue. It took 35 years to get Pacific Avenue paved.
Yeah.
Go down Atlantic Avenue, go down Artie, go down any street in this city. It's a mess. And that's what you want as the town that generates billions of dollars for this state?
Okay,
You
sir,
gotta
I am going to
realize
ask if you could have a seat because other people do want to participate in the conversation. Thank you for sharing your thoughts, however.
Okay.
Who else has their hand raised? We've got one here.
Good afternoon, Senator Sweeney. How are you? I applaud your support of special education. As a parent myself, not of a special needs, but I can see the effect that early education has on children, so I do applaud you on that. I've also been a public worker for 25 years. I work on the Atlantic City Expressway, right up the street. And in all that time, I've seen the pension go downhill. I agree with the man over here that said, yeah, pension reform, I can work with you. I'm more than willing to work with government. But I think the perception that most of my I'm the president of my union, I think most of our problem is the perception comes that, oh, we're broke because of public workers. Oh, the state's bad because of public workers. Oh, people are leaving because of public workers. And that perception comes back where you tell somebody you're a public worker, oh, you're the reason we're broke. I'm not retiring with a $100,000 pension. I'll be lucky I can still afford to live in New Jersey. The problem is we have a form here that just last year, $670 million went to an investment company to oversee the pension. That's money that could have been put to the pension instead of to an investment thing. There's millions of dollars that go to help illegal aliens. A whole different subject. I know it's a touchy subject, it's not politically correct, but millions of dollars that could help my children get ready to go to college. Oh no, then you're not an illegal immigrant, so you don't get the money, but we're going to give it to them. That's all money that could be going into the pension. And then people parachute into a pension. Hey, I've been a councilman, make $10,000 a year, but hey, give me, as you're my buddy, a really good job in a public union or a public sector for 3 years at $100,000 and my pension when I retire is on that. That's one of the problems. It's not your everyday public worker who goes out and makes the money and tries to support their family. It's more the parachuting and the money that's being spent to try and fix the pension instead of maybe putting that money into the pension.
Well, listen, honest to God, I value your service, and I don't blame public workers. But I do blame their leadership for not being honest about and having a discussion about, I'm sure you didn't hear, maybe you did, my explanation of all the things that happened with the pension system.
I wasn't on the
Did you ever hear that from your union leadership?
Not back then, no.
But my point is, look, you're not bad. You're doing a service. We appreciate the job you do. We're not blaming you. But what we're saying is, because of all these things that were done, you didn't do them as a worker, but the legislature and the leadership did, and they cost the future. Really, they cost your future by trying to make themselves look good. Really, it's nice as a union leader to go back to your members and say, look what I got. How much it costs? Nothing. Oh, wow, you're the best. You find out it doesn't work that way. So honestly, I don't blame you, but I got to fix it. And again, I keep telling people, look, the CWA could come up with a plan. They just changed health care. Give me a plan. Give me a recommendation to save the pension system. Oh, no, you just pay more. The answer is no, we can't. It's not that we don't want to, we can't. Oh, and the answer of the millionaire's tax, well, after that SALT thing that Trump did in New Jersey and the blue states, our property values are going down 7%. Millionaires have lost more money. They said, the governor will say millionaires made $27,000 on average. Somebody's a millionaire, right? But when you take away their ability to write off their taxes, and you take away their ability to write off their, the property taxes and their income tax, that you limit it to $10,000, they've lost money. They didn't make money. And they're the people that actually can get up and leave. There was 5,700 millionaires that left New Jersey and New York last year. And the treasurer just came before us yesterday and said, no, the language was interesting. But basically what they're saying, if you're retired and you have a pension, and you have an investment retirement income, and you have a home, you might be worth $1.4 million, right? Or you might be worth $1.2 million. That's not a millionaire. Not in my book. You know, a farmer. You know, farmers are classified the way they look at it as millionaires because their land's worth millions of dollars. Doesn't mean they're millionaires. So, like, let's not try to mislead people. The numbers are numbers. Numbers don't lie. People do, but numbers don't.
All right, we have time, sadly, I see lots of hands. We have time for about 2 or 3 more questions because the senator does have another engagement this evening. I'm going to ask, I haven't done this side of the room yet, so I'm going to have one here and one here.
My name's Leon. Just a general idea as far as revenue and just kind of cool concepts. Is there anything floating around where you guys are engaging maybe the possibility of doing something with esports, utilizing Atlantic City, the public, like the amount of people that come down here every year, the tourism aspect of it? I think that'd be a really good way to generate revenue when you pair such things as esports is one of the biggest things in the world.
Yeah.
Everyone in the world plays games. And to bring something like that, the highly competitive field to Atlantic City, that's like you're addressing that man's problem over there. You're helping to address the general deficit right here, and it's just something that like we already have. So is there something to maybe utilize that?
That's honestly a very good idea to look at. Look, now the Atlantic Cities, I think they've been flat with their tax rate for a couple of years now, right? That's a good thing. You know what I mean? Because there's people live in Atlantic City that couldn't afford to live here now. Maybe there is the opportunity to do something, to add something to help Atlantic City. There could be an opportunity to do that, you know, and we would like to do that. But really, the city's finances were completely out of control at one point.
Minor plug, Stockton University just launched its esports team. What did we win, Scott?
I saw Harvey smile. I was trying to figure out what's going on.
He was signaling.
Yeah.
All right, we had another question right here.
My name is Cynthia Cortopassi. I'm a designer and spokesperson for very wealthy business developers. And everything that we're saying here today is so serious. This is our last chance to get New Jersey back on their feet. And I've been blessed to be able to attract something that can really change New Jersey. And that is, I have a company that does a high-speed bullet train, the largest in the world. And they are looking at New Jersey. Why? As a designer consultant, I was busy at work and realized that if we can connect New York City to Atlantic City, 19.86 million people who want to leave New York and come to college here at Stockton and Atlantic Cape and buy the empty homes, I think that we should give it a shot. And I negotiated them paying for it. So I want to thank Senator Sweeney because he's always kept the door open for me. He is a go-getter, and he's never let me down with me bringing people to his office. And he's right, the state needs to get their act together. And thank you, Senator Sweeney, for being there and realizing how serious it is, and for not having the left or the right. And I'm not the left or the right, I'm Canadian. So let's get this done. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, trying to find innovative investments. You know, just so you know, I'm the one pushing for the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey to take over Atlantic City Airport. It was me. And I asked the 3 congressmen to support it. And they did. Because the Port Authority in New York and New Jersey, look, we're very territorial. You know what I mean? We're the South or the North. They're the largest airport operator in the country, in the world, not the country, the world. And they can get airlines to fly places. We can get business in that airport. You know, Newark does maintenance right now. Newark, all the plane maintenance is done in Newark. You know, Newark's very valuable real estate. Not that Atlantic City Airport isn't, but it's an underutilized asset. So if we can start getting business into that airport, I was in Las Vegas a month and a half ago. You land, you're at your hotel in 20 minutes. One of the disadvantages that we have is this: we are a regional economy here, gaming economy, where Las Vegas is a world economy. And when I was in Vegas in February, the sidewalks were packed. The restaurants were full. People were working. We need to take that asset. Like when you're saying think big, we take that asset and get the largest operator of airports in the world, you might see something happen. What happened last time, I couldn't understand why we didn't get it done, and then I saw the chairman's flight and all the nonsense that went with that, and there was a game being played, and it cost us the opportunity to have that happen. We're not talking about laying people off, we're just talking about someone taking ownership. In New York, when they did that, they bought Stewart Airport, which is outside their realm. Well, Stewart Airport, the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey had invested millions of dollars into the airport. There's more people flying out of Stewart Airport now. You know, by the way, they don't have Atlantic City. They don't have this casino, East Coast casino mecca that everyone else has. And with the progress that we're making, you know, we could start getting flights in here and open this economy. So anyone says, well, why are you doing it? Because it's really the right thing to do. And I appreciate Congressman Van Drew, Congressman Norcross, and Congressman Kim, because they didn't hesitate to say yes, because we need jobs. You know, we need more jobs down here outside of the casino industry, diversify the economy more, and this provides that opportunity.
I hate to cut it short. I saw many hands in the air, but unfortunately it is past 4:30, and I know that you do have another engagement this evening. So I hope that everyone will join me in thanking the Senator for making time for us this afternoon.